Okay, hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk about the Mosaic Law. There's lots of confusion over what the Mosaic Law is and whether or not it's been nailed to the cross, whether we are still bound by the Mosaic Law. If you speak to Christians who are fully under grace, they'll say no, that the law has been nailed to the cross. If you speak to people who are a little bit more under the legal tradition, like maybe Seventh-day Adventists or Messianic Jews, they will have varying degrees of legal binding that we still have to the law. So what is the law and what exactly is required of Christians today? So let's start by saying that the Mosaic Law actually has three parts. It had the natural law, the law that was given by God. Many people consider the Ten Commandments to be the natural law. It had the Levitical law, or what we refer to as the ceremonial law, and it had the civic law. Now, the civic law applied to Jewish citizens. It was much like laws that we would have today that govern people under a particular government. Then there was the ceremonial law. Now, the ceremonial law was definitely nailed to the cross because most of the ceremonial law was fulfilled in Jesus Christ. But there are going to be parts of the ceremonial law that, as we will see today, that were not fulfilled at the cross. So, for instance, the Passover was fulfilled at the cross. But what about circumcision? Circumcision was part of the Abrahamic covenant and it was not yet fulfilled. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But before we do that, I just want to mention the natural law, or the Ten Commandment law. And that, interestingly enough, actually came before Moses. It's considered part of the Mosaic law, but it's been around forever. It was wrong to kill. Cain killed his brother Abel, and it was wrong. And so this was not something that was established on Mount Sinai with Moses. This was not something that was established with the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments were a reiteration of much of the law that had been around all along. This was something that people had been following. They were required to follow it. The natural law, or what we call the Ten Commandment law, has been around since creation. However, it was reiterated under Moses and has been considered as part of the Mosaic law. Now, clearly, the Ten Commandment law has not been nailed to the cross. This has been around before Moses, and it continues to be around today. It is still wrong to do all of the things in the Ten Commandments. It's still wrong to break the Ten Commandments today, just as much as it was before. What I want to talk about a little bit today, though, is the ceremonial law. So, like we said earlier, the ceremonial law was largely fulfilled at the cross because most of the ceremonial system pointed to Jesus. However, there were some interesting things, like, for instance, circumcision. What was circumcision all about, and has it been fulfilled yet? Or will it be fulfilled in the future? Well, what I'm going to say is that I believe circumcision was a cutting away of the flesh, and it represented a cutting away of our sinful nature. Now, of course, while we're on this earth, while we're in these bodies, we cannot ever really separate ourselves from our sin nature. That's the problem with being in corrupt flesh. But the cutting away of the foreskin symbolized the removing of the sinful nature. Now, this is not something that's going to happen until we receive a glorified body. So circumcision pointed to a reality that has not been fulfilled yet. So it's part of the ceremonial law, and it does point to something that has not been fulfilled yet, unlike most of the other aspects of the ceremonial law, which have been fulfilled in Jesus.